Hello, good evening, and welcome to the RCB Sport Show. My name is Noel Green, and joining me are our regular RCB Sports panel, Nicholas Wynn and Jim Collin. On this evening's show, we'll go down memory lane as the panel pick their favourite memories of county club finals in both hurling and football in the last 2 decades from 2000 to 2019. Joining the panel tonight for this discussion are sports journalists Seamus Hayes, Paddy McMahon, and Owen Brennan to give our listeners their memories of county finals over the last 20 years. If you want to contact the show, you can leave any comments or opinions on the Facebook page, RCB Sport, or on our Twitter account at RCB Sport. You can list us online at www.rcb.ie or 92.5 and 94.8 FM in West Clare. You can also listen on the TuneIn app on your phone, tablet, or laptop and catch us up on the RCB Sports YouTube channel. First thing I would like to do is to welcome our special guests, Seamus Hayes, Paddy McMahon, and Owen Brennan. Seamus, if I start you, if I may. There have been many county finals in both codes in the last 20 years, but as we're starting with hurling, which one stands out for you, Seamus?
Well, I suppose there's something special about every county final, but the one I've chosen for this evening is last year's one between neighbouring rivals Six Mile Bridge and Cratloe. I suppose in the lead into the game, there were a lot of expectations. Both clubs had been prominent over the past decade. They had been close to success on occasions and didn't achieve it. Both would accept that they probably should have won more than they did. Cratloe went into the final as favourites, based, I suppose, on their impressive semi-final win over a very fancy Crusheen team. And they had beaten Six Mile Bridge on the way during the campaign the previous year. So that, I suppose, helped him to carry the favourites tag. It suited Six Mile Bridge ideally because I suppose most clubs would agree that deep down they prefer to be underdogs going into major finals. That puts the pressure maybe on the opposition. So from that point of view, there was huge interest in the game. You had two members of Clare's 95-97 All-Ireland winning panel on opposite sides in management. You had David Fitzgerald coaching Six Mile Bridge. You had Alan Neville managing managing Cratloe, native of Clarecastle. Mike Deegan was a selector with Cratloe, and he had been part of David Fitzgerald's management team. You had many of the leading players in the county on both sides, so there was a lot riding on the game, I suppose, and a lot of interest in it. So from that point of view, I suppose there was over 6,000 people at the game, and it turned out to be quite an entertaining game. But at the end of the day, Six Mile Bridge's greater experience won the day, and I suppose it was another title on the CV for David Fitzgerald, who has been prominent in managing club and county sides since he ended his playing days.
I suppose we'll open up to the floor now. I just get on Brennan's view on the county final last year. I always thought that Six Mile Bridge were always that little bit ahead of Cratloe. I thought that Six Mile Bridge looked the sharper. Would that be a fair point?
Yeah, I thought Cratloe had a great start. I think there were 6 points to 2 up after 10 minutes. Got a really fast start. And I think the turning point for them, I don't know if it was the match changer, but it was certainly the turning point for Cratloe was that Conor McGrath getting injured about midway through the opening half. He'd been brilliant all the way to the final in a kind of a newer role at midfield. He kind of got the freedom and he was starting to influence. But he got a leg injury. They pushed him in a corner forward, but he wasn't really influential after that. And I think after that, then Six Mile Bridge got, 10 of the next 14 points to completely turn it around. So I think there was a 9-point turnaround. I don't know if you can put it down to just one injury or anything like that, but definitely as the game developed, Six Mile Bridge looked the stronger side. You can argue about Cratloe and their dual commitments catching up with them again. It's hard to work it out either way, but Six Mile Bridge looked the fresher, looked the hungrier. Davy Fitz added a bit of impetus to him, I thought, last year. Really got him going again because this was their 4th title in 7 years and actually 5th final of the decade. So to win it every 2 years, 13, 15, 17, 19, a superb achievement in a championship that has been so open for so long. So the Derby final is certainly a factor, and I think it was one of the memorable ones from a supporter's point of view, both beforehand and throughout the game. But yeah, you're right. Six Mile Bridge, as the game developed, really looked like the much stronger side.
I'd like to bring in Paddy, if I may, there about this match as well. Paddy, Owen mentioned there the duel with Cratloe and all players playing week in, week out with football in the hurling. Do you think that was a point in the game as well?
Maybe not in that particular game, no. Like, I think Owen hit the nail on the head. For me, the turning point was Conor McGrath's injury. But maybe, I suppose, if Cratloe reviewed the decade, they might say one is hindering them from other sports. But I wouldn't particularly say it was the dual sports caught him in last year's final in particular. I do think it was the Conor McGrath thing. Maybe a couple of their other players didn't really have as good of a game as they could have had as well. Like, usually when you lose someone of Conor's ability, you'd be expecting your big name players to step up in his absence. But 6 Mile Bridge had, as Owen says, a very good decade, winning in 13, 15, 17 and 19. But they're bringing in new players every year nearly, like Jason Loughnane and Pam Mulready were two of the newer players in 2019 that wouldn't have featured in 17. And like Alex Morey had an outstanding year as well, having not played at all in 2018. So again, I suppose they did come out as top nearly as the best team of the decade as a result of that win.
And Jim, just on your view on the game, do you think, Jim, that, as we've all mentioned, Conor McGrath going up was a turning point in the game or a contributor to it? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Conor McGrath was sort of influential, and it was almost like the link man for Cratloe throughout that campaign. So pivotal, he was able to operate between that half-forward line and that midfield line, and his ability to maneuver when Cratloe needed him the most to conjure up scores. But when he went off, it sort of Cratloe lost that sort of coveted link between their midfield and their forward line, you know. But I just thought maybe for 6 Mile Bridge, to just the Cathal Malone factor and his influence throughout the year, and especially in that it was just sort of unplayable, and especially he just gave a matchup that Cratloe just couldn't handle with, and that's the sort of thing for a player of that stature and physique. It's almost like the movement of Cathal Malone, I think, was pivotal. I thought Brian Corrie was exceptional as well, siding the full forward line as well. He was very elusive, and Cratloe didn't have anyone to mark him. So that's why I just felt that maybe when Conor McGrath went off, 6 Mile Bridge defenders were better able to cope with the Cratloe forwards. And then on the flip side of that, Cratloe just didn't have the matchups in defence to deal with the likes of Cathal Malone and Brian Corrie.
Now, I know we're having trouble getting Nicholas Lynn on the line, so we'll skip now to yourself, Jim, and I'll pick what has been your county final in hurling over the last 20 years that you picked.
Yeah, I suppose for me, the hurling game, I went with I went for Ballyea. Ballyea's victory over Clonlara. And for me, it was 120 minutes it took to separate both sides. And I remember the first day out, Ballyea were sort of trying to stay in the game for large sort of spells, and Martin O'Leary sort of goal sort of changed the whole perfection of that game. And then they nearly won it then, but for Cathal O'Connell's last minute point to bring it to a replay. But then in the second day out, Ballyea just sort of took off, and Clonlara didn't get going. Now they came back again, Clonlara, but you just always felt like that Ballyea, that sense of belief from the first day, they really showed the second day out. And Niall Deasy was just a tour of force there the second day out. That goal he scored was an absolutely sublime solo effort. And Ballyea were they just looked at elite sort of level above Clonlara, and a turnaround for a week. They just looked like a transformed side, and they went on to have a real sort of dominant campaign that year as well, Ballyea. But yeah, it just goes to show you the belief and that sort of getting that draw and knowing that the big day nerves are over them, and they really delivered to the second day out. I think it was the real breakout of Niall Deasy as well that day. Really showed that he could develop, deliver on the biggest stage of all in Clare Club hurling, and it was outstanding. Tony was sublime, and John Conlon fought the battle, and Cathal Tots O'Connell fought the battle, and Galvin, Conor Galvin's, Colm Galvin, fought the battle as well for Clonlara. But Ballyea were just that much sharper, that much level. And it was probably one of the best performances I've seen in terms of a team, in terms of a transformation, because all the pre-jitter nerves the first day out, they were gone the second day out, and you could really feel that Ballyea, if they produced the performance to produce the second day out, they were going to have a real shot at Munster Club, and that's exactly what happened.
Now, of course, we'll open it up to the floor. I'll ask Paddy his views on that county final between Ballyea and Cracklow that Jim has clicked. What is your memories, Paddy?
Yeah, as Jim said, it was a game I suppose that could have went either way. Like Ballyea, they wouldn't have been regarded as having the best 15 at the time, but like Tony Kelly was in exceptional form for that whole campaign, and he carried it through then into Munster afterwards. But like Brian Carrick would have been one of their lesser players, and he had a very good county final, if I'm correct. And of course, Niall Deasy was in flying form, but for Clonlara, it was another one that they've let slip, and definitely, I suppose that they haven't really recovered yet from that one. Tots O'Connell was in very good form, but Ballyea overall were the better team. They were more determined, and Fergal Hagerty involved as trainer at the time. They did pull it out of the fire, and considering they weren't playing in the top tier of the Clare Cup, it was an impressive achievement as well. But they backed it up then in Munster. They had a fantastic win over Turlough Sarsfields. That was an exceptional comeback, and they proved their ability, and I suppose maybe give other clubs in Clare a sense of what they can do once they put the work in Munster club.
I'll ask Seamus his memories. Of course, as Park said there, they went on to win the Munster club and went on to get to the All-Ireland final. The great year of Ballyea, and that it all started with that county final, Seamus.
Yeah, it certainly started with that county final, but I think what stood out to me for me all that year was the spirit within the camp. There was a fantastic belief within that squad of players that they could go places, and that was reflected in every performance, and they simply refused to concede defeat anywhere. There were times maybe when things didn't look that good for them, but they just simply refused to lie down. And I think the lads mentioned their big guns really stood out. Like Tony Kelly was outstanding all year. Niall Deasy was exceptional. Gary Brennan, who's probably best known obviously as a footballer, but he had a key role in that campaign, and I think maybe he surprised many people with his ability with the hurling, and he caused a lot of problems for opposition teams throughout that campaign. I suppose I agree with Paddy there. Clonlara would feel that it was one that let slip, particularly in the drawn game. But I suppose the passion that Ballyea brought to the game wasn't matched by Clonlara, and I think that was the key, and it was the key all throughout that campaign. To win your first championship, most clubs would be celebrating for a number of weeks. Ballyea were back in song within a week, playing in a Munster club and building on the performance that won the championship for them. So it just showed, the belief that was in the squad, and they turned out to be great champions, and went all the way to the All-Ireland final.
I'd like to get Owen Brennan's view on that campaign for Ballyea. A brilliant campaign, county final into the All-Ireland final, win Munster, great comeback against Turlough Sarsfields. Owen Brennan, what's your memories of that whole campaign?
Yeah, in terms of a debutant, let's say, to win a county final, to go on to an All-Ireland club final is exceptional. And, it just shows the kind of wafer-thin margins that were there. I think Paddy and Seamus already mentioned it, and Jim as well, that, Ballyea were 25 points down with 20 minutes to go in the drawn game. Managed to pull it back level. I think Martin O'Leary just took off and got that goal. And it was Clonlara that had to equalise. And then in the opposite way in the replay, I think Ballyea were 5 points up and Clonlara came back. John Conlon got a goal, I think, and they managed to level it up coming towards the final quarter as well. And it's just that bit of resilience, as Seamus mentioned. Like to Tony Kelly, a massive spine of the squad. It was an inter-county spine, and you throw in a couple of inter-county footballers that were there. I think Gary Brennan's goal against Turlough probably will live long in the memory of just superb solo goals. And to go all the way to Croke Park from there was just a phenomenal achievement, really, for Ballyea. And I think after the final, on the Monday, they often mentioned it afterwards, that John Conlon, the Clonlara players, came down to Ballyea. And John Conlon mentioned that when they won it in 2008, that they celebrated it, even though that the Munster club was coming the following Sunday, and they didn't take full advantage of that Munster club campaign because they thought they might be able to get back there again. So he was just saying to the Ballyea players to take their chance while it came, and by God did they do it. And unlucky, I suppose, probably their poorest performance of the year came against Coola in the All-Ireland club final, but really superb year, go down obviously in history, their most famous year.
It was a superb year. It's just we were lucky to get off against Cool. I think Cool did back-to-back, if I'm not mistaken, there a couple of years ago as well. We're going to move on now to your choice for County Hurling final in Clare. What's your choice, Owen?
Yeah, look, a lot of the times with the county final, I found it difficult to pick one, to be honest, because a lot of the county finals tend to be nervy affairs. You would find a lot better quarterfinals and semi-finals, but I guess the final, obviously there's a lot on the line, bigger crowds there and all that. So there's not a lot of memorable county finals I can think of since 2000. I think the 2017 one, 6 Mile Bridge and County Quinn definitely has to go down. But I picked one, and I must put in a caveat before I start, because I didn't know Paddy was on the show. I didn't pick this on purpose, but
Sure
2008 2008 county final between Clonlara and Newmarket, and because I suppose that was the real start of the romance. We talked about the romance of the Clare Senior Hurling Championship. Tulla, made that breakthrough, and let's say from 1991 to 2006, 4 clubs shared 15 of 16 championships. You had the Bridge winning 5, you had Clarecastle winning 5. I think Bearfield won 3, and Wolf Tones won 2, and Kilmaley won the other one. But after that, the next 10 championships, 7 different winners, and a lot of those new winners are clubs that hadn't won it in so long. And it was Tulla that made the breakthrough. I think it was 74 years in 2007 when they made the breakthrough, but that final was a real bore fest between themselves and Crusheen, so I couldn't really go for that one. But to surpass it the following year was Clonlara, because they had come up from intermediate, winning the county and Munster club and the intermediate in 2007. And I suppose the main objective would have been just to stay up, but they had that momentum, that a young batch of players coming through, and they really took the senior championship, their first senior championship, by storm, to go on and beat. I suppose Newmarket were favourites, but they had a long period where they hadn't won one either. I think 1981 was their last one, so that was 27 years. So I suppose there was a lot of pressure in Newmarket as well to perform. They were the favourites against what were kind of debutants at the time. So for Clonlara to actually come out on top was a phenomenal achievement for them. It came by 3 points. I think it was 2 young teams. You're looking at 2 clubs that perhaps did win their county title each. Newmarket in 2012 and Clonlara in 2008, but they both contested 4 county finals and only won the one of them. So you probably say that both those teams probably didn't get the most out of their crop of players when they had them. But on that year, Clonlara really took the place by storm. And I think Martin Murphy got a goal after 80 seconds from Newmarket. And I just thought that was the one to really settle Newmarket down, because there was a lot of nerves there, a lot of pressure on their shoulders of they had won so many titles, 22 previous titles. And I think that when they won the last one in 1981, I think that was their 13th title in 19 years, which is just a phenomenal achievement. So you had a lot of pressure probably on their shoulders, even for guys that hadn't seen the previous team. But it was a team that Newmarket that won under 21A, I think from 2004 to 2006, 3 in a row. Clonlara actually beat them in the under 21 final in 2008, so that probably gave them the bit of a leap. But Martin Murphy's goal after 80 seconds, I think he could have got another goal a couple of minutes later, with Joe O'Connell made the save. Newmarket off to a fast start, but Clonlara, again, a bit like Ballier, that never say die attitude. They were young, they were hungry, they had no fear of anybody, and they got themselves back in the match. I think Tommy Lynch got a goal. Tommy Lynch was very, very influential on the day. And you had the likes of Nicky O'Connell, the O'Donovan twins, you had Dark Hone and John Connon, all those new players coming through as well. And as the game progressed, they really took the terms of it. They were 1-5 to 1-4 up at half-time. Newmarket came back with another couple of points. And then I think for the last 25 minutes, it was Clonlara that showed that bit of extra experience when you expected Newmarket to do it. I think they outscored them by 7 points to 2, and showed remarkable composure for such a young team. And to win that, they didn't do well in the Munster club. 7 days later, they were down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but to just win that title alone was huge, kind of that fairy tale story, because that was their first title in 89 years. And just the significance of that being that the last time they won it was in 1919, which was a year after the coronavirus of the Spanish flu. So that might give them hope for next year that they'll be able to finally break their hoodoo, because after that they were 9 of the next 10 semi-finals, and were in 3 county finals after that and never won it again. It's a real shame that particular team didn't win anything, and that was a team before the likes of Colm Galvin and Tots O'Connell and all that. But and Newmarket will come back 4 years later to win it. So I just thought the significance of the game, rather than, you know, probably one of the more memorable games, but it was really seesaw battle for long periods of the game, but before Clonlara really stamped their authority in the last quarter.
I just want to get Seamus Hayes' opinion on that county final. Seamus, Owen mentioned there Clonlara had a very bad start. I think after was 30 seconds they conceded a goal. Declan Schroeder, a young team, because I accept both teams were young teams, but Clonlara were waiting for such a long time between a county title. And Owen Brennan said they showed great fighting qualities at the end and dragged themselves back.
Yeah, they certainly did. I suppose the confidence they had gained the previous year in winning the intermediate title and in going on to win the Munster intermediate title, you know, was evident. You know, they didn't seem to have any fears in the senior grade the following year. You know, and they took each game. They looked confident. They never seemed to panic when they went behind, and that was evident in that final. I suppose I agree with Owen there. You know, there was a lot of pressure on Newmarket because whether you like it or not, these fellas were playing on the back of what had been achieved in the 60s and 70s when Newmarket dominated Clare Hurling, winning 3 in a row on a number of occasions and 4 in a row, and they were the dominant team. And I suppose everybody just saw Newmarket, and that, you know, once Newmarket got to a final, they were going to win. And you know, this is a totally new group of players, and they were trying to make their own stand, we'll say. And you know, so there was pressure on them, and there was pressure on them, I suppose, from a supporters' point of view, because Clonlara, when Newmarket were dominating in the 60s and 70s, Clonlara wouldn't have been a force at senior level. So I suppose the view would have been, you know, Newmarket with the record you have and the club have, you know, the view of the outside would be sure Newmarket will win this handy. But, you know, Clonlara were quite confident. They had some of the finest young talent in the county at the times, as they proved. You know, Owen mentioned the names of the O'Donovans, like the Donovan twins, and there was an older brother, Tomas O'Donovan, who you know, was a key figure in that team because he was a powerful player. You know, and that years he's been playing his hurling up in Kinbarra and Galway, where he's now based. But you know, he was a key figure in that team. Conan, you know, was coming through. Derek Conan, young player. Galvin, John Conlon, they were all just coming onto the scene. And Tommy Lynch, who later went to Australia, you know, he had a superb season that season. So, you know, they really deserved the success in that campaign because, you know, they took on the best in various rounds of the competition and came out on top.
Just coming to Park on that county final in Park, it's great for any club team to win their county final. But after such a long wait, it was a great day for Clonlara that day.
Yeah, it was a great day for Clonlara. I'd preferred if the result was different myself, but I think Seamus hit the nail on the head there. Like Tomas O'Donovan, since he's been missing, Clonlara haven't been the same. Like, he was maybe not their best hurler, but he was just an exceptional leader, and all the younger players would have really looked up to him. And Tommy Lynch, got man of the match that day. He caused a lot of problems, but I think the goal from Martin Murphy early on was probably the worst thing that could have happened in Newmarket, or such is what we say 22 years after in our analysis that continues. But yeah, Clonlara, like, they were coming. John Conlon and Enda Barrett had an exceptional battle as well. John was wing forward, I think, and Enda wing back. That was very exciting. But Newmarket, I suppose, had the better panel, and just they didn't make it count, I suppose, managed by Diarmuid O'Leary and trained by Kieran O'Neill. But like Jim Gully's gone down in history now as Clonlara being the man to get him over the line that day. And I suppose they were just at the right time. You had the Tomas O'Donovan, Donal Madden, Gerald Connell, the kind of the leaders, and then, as the lads had said, John Conlon and Derek and Cormac and Donal O'Donovan, they were all at the right age a year before. Clare obviously won the under-21, of which they were all key players as well. So, you know, I think TG Carrer shown the under-21 semi-final between Clare and Galway, and people that'll see what Derek Conan was like when he was at the height of his power, and how much of a handful he was for any club defender in 2008. But yeah, it was a great win for Clonlara, but not a great day for us in Newmarket.
And we won't mention it again too much after Jim. Jim, just get your view on Clonlara's victory over Newmarket.
Yeah, I suppose when you mention all those young guns from Clonlara bursting onto the scene at that sort of element, you just have to look at the likes of Nicky O'Connell. He was definitely in his pomp then, and Nicky was a terrific player, and he was really the sort of flash. It was almost like he had Tony Kelly sort of powers back then in terms of his ability. And Clonlara, for a team appearing in the first county final after 89 years, only led by a point at half time, 1-5 to 1-4. So getting in at half time, having that slender advantage, you almost felt there was going to be a backlash going to come from Newmarket, almost like licking their wounds. But Clara just they had that bit of steadiness, that bit of calmness, as Owen said, knock on those points coming down the stretch to pull away. So they were sort of fearless. The occasion really didn't get to them at all. And people look about the exceptional Clara hurlers that we have today, and people don't realise the loss of the likes of Cormac O'Donovan as well. Cormac was an absolutely terrific player as well, and probably a player that it never really happened to him and didn't take off in the second half of the decade for Cormac. But Cormac and Nicky, when you look at their loss these days for the likes of Clonlara and Nicky O'Connell, his powers never sort of waved after then as well, but they were certainly two delightful hurlers on that occasion, and it was fully deserving for Clonlara, but it's Newmarket, as Paulie said. Newmarket had a terrific start, and you just almost felt like they just felt that they were always going to get over the line, and no matter what Clonlara threw them, they'd have that experience coming down the stretch. But Clonlara had different ideas on that occasion, and fully merited. But as we know, then you always expected, like 2013 with Clare, that Clonlara would go on to dominate and put more county finals, but it never really happened. And that's the thing about hurling, when she gets to the biggest occasion for the Campbellhampton, it's winner take all, and if you don't take it, there's no guarantees that it'll come around again, that opportunity for you to take it.
Now, moving on to our next county final. This is Paddy's choice, I believe, and this is going to be a bit more of a happier memory now, Paddy, is it?
Well, I could have nearly taken one out of the own Brennan handbook and went for the 2002 county final when the Maggies lost, but instead
it wouldn't be that cruel. It won't be that cruel.
Instead, I went for a happier memory for us in Newmarket. So I chose the 2012 county final when Newmarket beat Cratloe 10-9. And as Owen said earlier on, probably not the best game, and as he had said, I suppose a lot of the time the semi-finals and quarter-finals are the best games, and one of the best I saw in a knockout stage was Wood Tones and Dora Bearfield, and there was just a picture from John Kelly that just brings to mind when you had Brian Lohan and Jamesy going head to head, that just summed it up, the kind of titanic battle that was there at the time. But anyway, in 2012, this was Newmarket's 23rd title, and as the lads had said, it was 31 years since the previous title in 1981. But the key thing that had probably changed, like obviously the lads had the history of the 80s and 70s and 60s on top of them, but they had also the disappointment that they had experienced from 2005 to 2012, when they kind of became a force again at senior in 2005, lost the semi-final, then went on and lost the county final in 06 and 08. So they had that kind of burden of modern history on top of the previous history as well. But a big help was the impact of Liam Sheedy to the management team. He wouldn't have been there at every session. He would have been there maybe once every couple of weeks and at every match. And what a man to be able to call in. We've seen what he's done with Tipperary, and the difference he made to Newmarket is clear in the history books. He hasn't been as involved since, wasn't as involved in 2013 when they lost the final, and that was clear to see. So, his impact was very clear. And on the day, it was goals that made the difference. Finished 3-10 to 9 points, as I said. Newmarket were 2-6 to 6 up, I think, at half time. Shane O'Brien Jr. pounced for the 2 goals. Anthony Kilmartin at full forward, who unfortunately hasn't played for Newmarket at senior level since, made the 2 goals for him as well. They linked up very well. Newmarket only scored 1-4 in the second half, all of which came from Colin Ryan. And usually when you only get 1-4 in the second half of a county final, you won't come out on top, but they did. And it was just, I suppose, that killer instinct that Newmarket previously hadn't showed that was on display. And then also helped by the fact that year 4 players from Newmarket, Colin Ryan, Enda Barish, James McInerney and Owen Hayes, were all part of the Clare senior panel, which of course were trained by Davy Fitzgerald, Paul Kinnerk and Joe O'Connor. So to be exposed to that level of training was very beneficial for them to bring back to Newmarket. And obviously from Cratloe's point of view, losing Barry Duggan to injury before half time was a killer blow, because he was their most experienced player. But I suppose Enda Barrett was captain at the time, fantastic leader. And in his speech afterwards, it kind of said that it had ended 31 years of hurt, and that it was for every player that wore the jersey beforehand, and a fantastic day, obviously for Newmarket, the only regret I suppose for us is we haven't built on it since, and I suppose you could say that for a lot of teams in Clare, except for the Crusheen, Ballier and 6 Mile Bridge that have managed to win a couple. But yeah, not as sore as 2008 or 06, but nice to finally get over the line.
Yes, that's for sure. Seamus, you mentioned earlier on about Newmarket, the great tradition they have over the number of decades, and that win was been a sweet win. And I think 31 years, as Paddy says, is a long, long time.
Yeah, and one of my abiding memories from that day was the celebrations afterwards, and to see the players from the market who had started in the 60s and 70s, and to see what it meant to them, and see them out around the pitch congratulating the players who had been part of that success. You know, that was one of my big memories from that particular game. You know, the market were the better team on the day, and I suppose, as Paddy said, the hurt of being so close on a number of the previous years, you know, probably carried them over the line and saw them. You know, they weren't going to die down on this occasion, and obviously Liam Sheedy did play a big part in it. You know, he was very evident on the sideline on the day of games, and you know, he really was evident up and down the sideline, driving players on. You know, if there was any sign of a lull in their commitment, you know, and that really stood out. But it was a particularly special occasion for the market, I suppose, after the hurt of all the near misses, to finally get the Canon Hamilton back to what they would see as the right as its right from home.
That's for sure. Owen, if I could bring you in, Paddy has mentioned that it was a great day. They won a county final, but he sort of, well, I wouldn't say maybe frustrations the wrong word, but he feels they haven't really built on it over the last number of years when they were in that good run, won the county final in 2012, but didn't really build on it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, they were in the county final the following year, and I suppose to be sore to be beaten by Clare, then be beaten by 6 Mile Bridge the following year, but definitely they didn't build on it, and they won a lot of Clare Cups in that time to show that they were one of the top dogs. But in saying that, at least they won in 2012. There's a lot of clubs that have their periods of dominance. It's such a competitive championship that there's no guarantees you're going to win anything. So I think to have won it at all and to break that hoodoo, it was kind of out of necessity, I felt, in 2012. You know, you could see the pressure, especially in 2008. 2006 was all a new thing for a lot of those players, but 2008 there was a lot of pressure on, as you said. But in 2012 there was a kind of a release, and Seamus is right. Afterwards, the celebrations were brilliant, but it was as much relief as anything else that they had finally got over the line, and this group of players who deserved a county title. You know, there's some very, very phenomenal players in that group that really deserved it for all the efforts that they'd made all the way up to the ranks, both and some at county level as well. And for Newmarket to finally get over the line, I think the Liam Sheedy factor was big, because it was psychological at this stage that Newmarket just weren't performing in the county finals and some of the big games in championship, that, you know, they weren't performing to their potential. But on that day, they kind of just left everything out on the field, and I think that was quite evident. There was no doubt about who was the deserving winners on the day, even though the Cracklow, you know, were a very, very potent team at the time themselves. But for Newmarket to break 31 young years was brilliant for them to get right back to the helm. And okay, they didn't build on it, but to win it at all was a great breakthrough.
Jim, we mentioned Liam Sheedy, but I suppose Jim, the emphasis that a county will manager in Tipperary, Liam Sheedy brings, he's won All-Ireland. Do you think that was that extra bit of motivation that Newmarket needed to just get over that county final line?
Yeah, I suppose once you have a track record like Liam Sheedy, and you've been there, done it all in the big occasion, you have that experience to call on. I suppose for players, having Liam on the dressing room, having that sort of calming sort of influence, having that expertise when you want that piece of advice, that extra bit of tip, that extra bit of tactical nous. And as for a management as well, it instills that inner belief of a sort of an almost like professional sort of setup, that we've gone above and aboard to try to get the best in to get us over the line. And the Newmarket went above and beyond in terms of resources to win that county final. And as for players there, if you have that sort of guy in the locker room, in the back door, that sort of secret element that you can use to call upon, just to give you that bit of guidance in terms of what small little factors. And for Newmarket, making the breakthrough. They have been so close, as Seamus said, in once or two. It was so most those tiny little things and tiny bit of detail that needed to get right. And when you have Colin Ryan, the performance he gave that day, and his goal was an absolutely a fantastic goal on the occasion as well, the great county final. Newmarket probably just hurt for previous years, got him over the line, and having those players in the county final, in the Barrett, a terrific hurler, and Shane O'Brien sort of was in the right place at the right time on several occasions on that county final for all those Newmarket fans. And it's a shame, because since then Newmarket have sort of failed. Every time you sort of tip Newmarket to have a great year since, it's sort of been disappointment. So they're one of those Jekyll and Hyde teams in the championship, but once they get on a roll and once they hit sort of form and song, they're a force for anyone. And sadly for me, the times when I tip them to have a great year, they don't have a great year, and the times when you don't expect much from them, they seem to catch fire. But that was definitely a year when everything, consistency was what Newmarket had that year and throughout the whole campaign. And when Newmarket have consistency, they're a force for anyone.
I can see Paddy edging to get back in there, but we're going to switch to the football there for the moment. Seamus, your county football final memory over the last 20 years, which one stands out for you?
I'm probably showing a bit of bias here, but I'm going back to 2007 when my own club, this occasion, made a breakthrough. We had been beaten in the final the previous year by Aero, and both teams got back to the final in 2007. And I suppose, we had come all the way up along the line from a junior club in the 70s to winning senior status in '94, when coincidentally we beat Aero in the final, the intermediate championship in '94. A hotly fancied Aero team, I might say, 12 of whom had won the senior title as part of the Fox amalgamation 7 days earlier. But we got into a county final in '98. Were beaten in a replay by Doonbeg. And we were beginning to wonder, what was the day ever going to come, because we felt we had a talented group of players. Very disappointing to be beaten in 2006 by Aero. But 2007 came along. We had a couple of pluses going into 2007. Sean Hill, who had missed the 2006 campaign as he was in Australia, had returned home and was back in the team. Michael Slowey, a Monaghan native, had come to live in Lissycasey and work in Lissycasey and had joined the club. He had come back from New York. And both those players added to what was already a fairly strong panel. And it was great to get all the way through and to eventually win the title and bring the Jack Daly trophy back to Lissycasey. For people like Colin Lynch and Martin Daly, who had strived for so long from their under 14 days, like here were two lads who were playing adult football with the club when they were under 16. Probably it wouldn't happen maybe now because of the age restrictions, etc. And they had never left the club and had stayed loyal to them, and played a key factor in that county final win. So that's a final that will always stand out to us, and obviously we're proud of it. And it was a great day for the club.
A great day for the case and a great day for Seamus. I see a big smile in his face there. Pádraig, can I get your thoughts on that county final?
Well, as like Seamus mentioned, the two players there, and they'd be the two that would spring to mind when you talk of this win, like Colin Lynch and Martin Daly, two men that have maybe experienced the poorer days with Lissycasey, having to fight off relegation at times, and then to come to the fore and to savour in one of their biggest days. And I know it's a memory the two of them treasure, and of course you treasure it when you win county final with your club. It's very special. But of course, as Seamus has said as well, then Aero had the level of pressure coming in as reigning champions, and I suppose maybe a lot of people would say it, that pressure and Aero, how well does it go together? But Lissycasey had the answer that day, and I suppose in recent times they've done well in terms of underage. They've been competing in A and stuff, but just maybe not, I suppose, players that have won county titles haven't filtered through into senior level. So I suppose they've struggled in recent years, but the 2007 one is a very special memory, and as Seamus Smile suggested, it's one they're still very proud of.
I suppose though, if we bring you into the county final, they mentioned that Aero were defending champions. Regardless of any level, whether it's intermediate or senior, whatever, in the county or club, it's very hard to do back-to-back in any finals, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think, for Listy Casey, having probably been a bit wasteful the year previously, to come back and actually right that wrong, was a significant one for them, and it was their first county championship as well. So, huge for them, and it's just important because you saw after that, Kilmurray Brecon were the ones to take over, and there was not many opportunities for someone like the Listy Casey to do it. So to actually win that title and make the breakthrough, particularly after losing to the same opposition the previous year, I think took great spirit. I always remember the performance, the kind of leadership of Martin Daly in particular. I'd say he got maybe 6 points in that final. And I thought he just really, really steered the ship when it was needed most. Wasn't the happiest occasions for me, I must say, not because I'm not a Listy Casey fan, but I got 2 penalty points. I was coming back from Venice and I was driving from Cork to Ennis at a breakneck speed. I got 2 penalty points for Sweden. That's how I remember that day. But Listy Casey and Seamus is right about the supporters in that. I remember playing against Listy Casey in the league, and they would have hundreds of people at league games, really, really passionate supporters at league games, all the way up to the ranks, all the way up to the division. So for the supporters alone, they really had a really, really loyal support down to the years that saw them coming up from junior, intermediate, and onto senior, and they deserve to make that breakthrough. I just, unfortunately, noticing a bit of home bias here. Paddy's picking Newmarket, James is picking Listy Casey, and Jim had one for Ballyea, and am I the only neutral candidate on this thing?
You got speedy wheels, you can make a quick getaway. Jim, we can talk to you. Jim, what would be your opinion on that county final that's been picked?
Just back on the Listy Casey game before I move on to my own game. Just in relation to that, I remember that because I grew up with most of those lads that sort of made the breakthrough for Listy Casey an awful lot. I remember the 2 Kellys. People talk about the twins, Anthony Kelly and James Kelly. These guys were fantastic footballers. That midfield partnership between Anthony Kelly and Michael O'Rourke was so dominant that year. And it was probably one of the best in the county. I remember Michael O'Rourke as well. He was a great footballer, and I remember the horrific injury he got in Ballycally playing a match below in Ballycally. He popped his knee went out, and agony in the man's face that day, and it was the end of his days. He never recovered from that. And Michael was a terrific footballer as well. And Listy Casey had an awful lot of experience, but an awful lot of good young lads as well. Alan Nagle, a terrific footballer in his day as well. Alan played for Clare as well. There was always the argument, Seamus, in the parish, who was the better cousin, Alan Nagle or Brendan Nagle, Benny Nagle. There was always that debate, who was the better one, and Alan has the one with the county medal, and Brendan always felt he was the better one. But yeah, look, there was some terrific footballers in that team. I remember David Clancy and David Pine would have been real prominent players, and they were just coming on an edge there as well for Listy Casey. So it was a good blend. But I always felt, that when the 2 Kellys left to go to Australia, the sort of that sort of spine was taken away from Listy Casey, and it halted their progress through going forward. And look, they had so many talented players, and they were waiting for the next generation in the Conor Finucanes, Dustin Hanrans to come through and deliver, but they probably didn't deliver as much for Listy Casey as what they would have liked, what they got from the Kellys and Nagle and Clancy and Pine, because they had great promise, those youngsters, and delivered for Listy Casey. So yeah, I sort of remember it in terms of that, because I remember going in, because there were an awful lot of lads I would have played football with down through the years, like going in, following them and watching it that day. And I have to say I was delighted for them, even though I played most of my football for the other side of the parish.
No problem at all, Jim. We'll switch our attention now to Owen Brennan's choice of county final in the football. Owen, what memory sticks out for you?
Yeah, and again, I've gone for probably the occasion over the spectacle, really, and the significance of it, because and I went for the 2015 one, a kind of a novel pairing between St. Joseph's Milltown and County Clare. Now, it wasn't novel for all those historians, admitting many's a final down to the decades, but in that particular juncture, neither side had won it in so long. It was 24 years since Milltown had got to a county final, and 25 years since they had won it. And for County Clare, it had been 18 years since that 97 win. So they are 2 kind of sleeping giants that that needed to get that win, and whoever was going to win it, it was going to be a big achievement regardless, you know. And I'd mentioned already, you know, after Nissy Casey won in 2007, Kilmurray Brecon got a couple of titles, Doonbeg won one in the middle, and then Cracklow took over with 2 titles. So this was up to maybe a new contender for the Jack Daly, and it was Milltown that took that opportunity on the day. Again, the strong final quarter got them over the line. The sides were level. Just coming up to the final quarter, I think County Clare did have their chances to win it, but it was Owen Cleary that began what was, I think they got 5 of the last 6 points to kind of go out and see it and win it. And it was a nervy kind of a game. Milltown had been relegated actually in 2012, came back up in 2013, and for them to break that 25-year hoodoo, I just thought was a significant achievement for them. And County Clare, you know, had young players as well at the time. They were just after winning the minor, first minor in 24 years, minor A. They'd won the minor B the previous year. They had a bit of momentum. It'd be interesting to see if County Clare if they'd taken those 2 chances around the 45-minute mark to kind of inch ahead, what kind of pattern they would have followed in the coming years, because Milltown have followed that up now. They've had 3 titles in the last 5 years, and they've really established themselves as the top dog at the moment, and particularly over last year, because beating Kilmurray Brecon, their neighbours, haven't won. They'd shared the last 2 titles each in the previous year. So that was the catalyst for Milltown to push on. That new generation, the Cleary twins coming through, particularly Owen was outstanding in that championship. He was the top scorer as well. And it just that bit of extra edge that they had coming down the final straight, I just thought for the significance for Milltown to win that one. A novel final, a bit like the All-Ireland final between Waterford and Galway in the hurling in 2017. You know, whoever was going to win it, it was going to be special, and Milltown got out on top, and kind of the lovely old Milltown being sung from the stand as well. 25 years is a long time, so I just thought that was a really, really significant day for the present time in Clare football.
Lovely old Milltown was sure in full voice that night in Milltown and further afield. That's for sure. Seamus, if we get your memories of that county final. Owen Brennan mentioned, I think he said 2 sleeping giants, and he said about a hoodoo getting it off their back in 1990 since Milltown, if I'm not mistaken, in 97. Seamus, so it was a great victory for Milltown, a great hoodoo off their back.
Yeah, it was, and I suppose you know, a lot of Milltown people would accept now that being relegated from senior a couple of years earlier was the shot in the arm that maybe they needed. You know, that there was a feeling that they had the talent and maybe things weren't just clicking for them. You know, but being relegated really set them thinking, and you know, they got very serious about wanting to get back. They felt strongly about that they're a senior club. You know, and the focus turned very quickly to serious training. And Michael Nealon was a very strong manager and did a lot of work, you know, that year and got them going. And as Owen said there, clearly Gordon Kelly, who has been ever present and, you know, who has been, I suppose, one of the most consistent footballers in Clare over the last decade for club and county, you know, was another key figure in that success. And, you know, it was very much up in the air for 3 quarters of that game, but Milltown finished stronger and deservedly came out on top at the end.
Now, we mentioned, of course, that Milltown have gone on. They've gone on to win these 3 county championships since then. They've really pushed on Porrick since that day, and that was a real turning point for the club, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, a massive turning point. And one of my memories from it was that we were over in the not the usual press box than we've normally been. They were doing up the newsstand as it is now in Cusack Park at the time, and I remember Ina Kilnamona were playing Newmarket in the Camogie final beforehand, and Margaret Lafferty's son Damien was playing, so she had to rush from Clarecastle down to Cusack Park to try to get to the final. I think she was a few minutes late, but she had a good day all the same with Milltown winning. But as you said, no, like, they have gone on, and one thing that kind of sticks out, like a year previous, 2014, Clare coming very close against Kildare in Cusack Park in the qualifiers. Colm Collins' first year, Jamie Malone and Owen Cleary would have been coming on. But if you look at the progression of those 2 players in the last 6 years, like, they've gone from being, I suppose, fringe players to 2 of the best footballers in Clare that we've had in the last 2 decades, I suppose. But as Seamus has said, the experience of Gordon Kelly was crucial as well. I think it could have possibly been Cormac Murray's first year with the seniors. I could be wrong in that for Milltown. But Milltown had a couple of new lads coming into it, but they also had the experience, whereas County Clare had a lot of young lads like Killian Roach and Pierce Lillis and Jack Morrissey. and I suppose they did have the experience of Rory Donnelly and Conor Marnan and these guys, but Milltown just had that, they were able to match them in that. And as the lads had said, being an intermediate and coming back up and having a successful run in the Munster Championship in that time was very, very beneficial for them. But they've been fortunate as well, I think, that they've had exceptional managers in terms of they had Michael Neal that time, and then they've had David O'Brien as well. So any club would kind of be lucky to have guys of those calibre. Of course, County Clare had Ger Lawler at the time, who's been very good manager too, but Milltown have they just seem very professional from what I've seen, even in how they run the club and everything. So, you know, once you have high standards off the field, you're more than likely going to bring them onto the field, and that we've seen that in the last couple of years.
Thank you very much, Paddy. Moving on to yourself there, Jim, just on this county final, it's been mentioned that Milltown were relegated and they got brought back up. That can go either way, Jim, sometimes, where when a team goes down, it can find it very hard to come back up. But Milltown have built it on, they've set high standards, they've got great managers, and they really turned themselves around after being relegated, didn't they?
Oh yeah, most definitely they turned themselves around. They came up with a sort of pomp, just like I suppose we came up in 2011 when Cracklow came up. They sort of took to the senior ranks. I suppose that's probably for a while. Paddy had these memories of a bad year, 2015 for us. Our side of the parish we conceived as a bad year for being a Clondigad sort of guy. It's probably the one we feel we sort of let slip that year. That sort of, especially that ambush we got caught behind in County Clare when everyone thought we sort of were raging hot favourites to go on and win it. That year was sort of, we left it behind us, but yeah,
so look, got over, Jim.
We're still not over. We're still not over it though. We are in these sort of ones. We're still having nightmares about it. But yeah, look, I suppose, if you look about leadership in a county final, Kevin Keevy was I remember going in to see that final, and you were talking about your Conor Clearys, your own Clearys, but the leadership, Kevin Keevy went forward, scored 3 points from play in a county final, and he was just exceptional. It showed the never stay sort of die for Milltown's attitude, where they just gave a team performance, and everyone from 1 to 15 sort of gave an 8 out of 10 performance. And County Clare were relying on Rory Donnelly. Is Rory Donnelly going to produce magic after magic? And Rory Donnelly did his best, but one man can't do it all. And while he threw the sword down for us in the semi-final against Kilmehel, it was just probably a task too much. And probably I just felt like Milltown had won their semi-final the previous day, and they were back watching our game against County Clare, and you just felt that Mikey Neal, and I remember coming off the field, I was part of the Clondigad panel, and he had the notebook out and he was standing up on the side. I say he must have 20 pages of notes made on County Clare's victory over Clondigad anyway, because Damien Burke, Ty Gillisy, them all sort of ticked off Tom Downs. Tom Downs got a goal against us, and you could see that he had every sort of scenario countered for, and almost like every tricks of the bag that Gerard Lawler pulled out against us, that Mikey Neal had an answer for him, and you just felt that Milltown were always in control and sort of scenario. And I suppose County Clare didn't have a real chance. County Clare were so focused on Clondigad in that semi-final that didn't really have a chance to look at Milltown, and you just felt that Milltown had their homework done, and they had 80% of that psychology, and you give Mikey Nealon no better man to scout a team in Clare than Mikey Nealon, and yeah, that matchup, you just felt like Milltown were never going to lose it, and that was the case. And Kevin Keevy, his biggest day in a Milltown jersey, and he sort of bowed out since then, but yeah, it was his crowning glory, and people ask about that county final and they talk about Owen Cleary, and but the name that keeps mentioned around Milltown is the performance Kevin Keevy gave, scoring 3 points from play, and yeah, that's what I always remember, Keevy's performance in that final. Definitely a deserving man of the match winner.
Thank you very much, Jim. And moving on now to Paddy's choice for a county final over the last 20 years. Paddy, what game are you remembering?
I'm going to 2009, Noel. Not the best final, but just for the significance, I suppose, of what happened after. And Kilmurray Bricken beat Kilkee 12 points to 2-3 on the day. Not the most glamorous tie or result that you'd get from a county final, but just Kilmurray Bricken after it would have went on, won Munster for the second time in their history, and later went on to get to the All-Ireland. But on the game itself, I suppose Kilkee were a small bit hindered. They'd no Derek Kelly. It would have been lying out at full-back or centre-back for them, a very important part of the central part of their defence. And Kilmurray Bricken only introduced Noel Downs and Odrin O'Dwyer late in the game, but they both had a huge impact. I think Noel Downs got the equaliser on around 51 minutes. And from there, they pushed on again. Noel Downs got another point, and Peter O'Dwyer as well was very influential. I think he pushed them ahead as well. So Ian McInerney, who's now playing in goals, he was on the freeze that day for Kilmurray Bricken with Dermot O'Brien in goals. But one of the things that stood out for me in their first round, Mark McCarthy scored 2 goals against Ballyvaughan, but then in the Munster Club final, which they won against Kearns O'Rahilly's from Kerry, Mark McCarthy only came on as a sub on 60 minutes. So normally a lot of clubs, not of Kilmurray Bricken standard, but other clubs, if you can sometimes coast off your performance in the first round for the rest of the year, but it didn't happen in Kilmurray that year, obviously, as Mark McCarthy found out. Paul O'Connor was another integral part of that team at midfield. In what was a very strong Kilmurray Bricken team, obviously 2009, 125 years of the GAA, so it was special for them to win it. At that time, Enda Coughlin was captain. But as I say, to go on then and beat Drumcolour, Broadford, Stradbally of Waterford, and then Kearns O'Rahilly's in the final to win a Munster club, and to do it the second time in 5 years is a fantastic achievement. No club from Clare, I think, has gone on to win the Munster club at senior football level since. And then they beat Portlaoise in the semi-final, and then obviously came up short against St. Gall's of Antrim in the All-Ireland Club final. But I think to get to an All-Ireland Club final is a fantastic achievement, as we said, with Ballyea doing it in the hurling. But for Kilmurray Bricken to do it in football, obviously, as Clare, I suppose, wouldn't be as highly regarded in football as they are in hurling. To get to an All-Ireland final at senior level, I think is a fantastic achievement, and one that should be celebrated and maybe applauded in this way. Obviously, they didn't get the result, but I think, 11 years ago, I think if you were to talk to maybe the likes of Keelan Sexton and Dermot Coughlin, seeing that run that Kilmurray Bricken went on, I think that would have been something that it would inspire lads of their age at the time. So that's what you want as well from football. It's to just inspire the next generation. And I think although they didn't win an All-Ireland final, they definitely managed to inspire the next generation.
Thank you very much, Paddy. Just getting on going to Seamus about that campaign. I suppose the county final, as Paddy said, it mightn't be literally about the quality of the game, but it's what Kilmurray Bricken went and after get to Munster final and get to an All-Ireland final. That was sort of the starting blocks for Kilmurray Bricken that year, and really they took off after a couple of county finals after as well. Yeah,
they got better as the season went on that year, and Paddy mentioned player there, Paul O'Connor. He was a key figure in that campaign. Later immigrated to New York, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, played for New York shortly after that in one of the All-Ireland Championship games. But they had a core of great players like Paul O'Connor, Darren and Knife, Darren and Shane Hickey in particular. And in addition to Enda Coughlin. But those fellas, they were around for a while. They were vastly experienced. Very few clubs were able to get a handle on them. And I suppose Paddy was mentioned there about Mark McCarthy and scoring in the first round and then only coming on as a sub in the Munster final. I suppose that showed the battle for places that was within the squad at that time. They had a tremendous panel of players, and they had 22 or 3 players who were vying for positions week in, week out. So that's a key factor in any championship success, where you can have players challenging for positions. It makes an awful difference. And I think that was one of the key factors in Kilmurray Bricken's success that year.
Yeah, it sure was, Seamus. It was a very proud day for bring you in now. I'm very proud of Clare football, Clare club football, a team getting to an All-Ireland final. But where would you rank in terms of achievements in Clare GAA on that achievement getting to an Ireland club final?
It was massive, and a bit like Ballyea. Unfortunately, they probably saved their worst performance for the All-Ireland final. St. Gall's were just that bit more savvy, I'd say, on the day. If I remember correctly, I think before the semi-final, there was the word they got the extra psychological boost that time because Portlaoise had apparently called off the St. Paddy's Day parade before they met him in the semi-final, thinking that they were going to get through to the final, and that kind of gave Kilmurray Bricken the spur. I don't know if it was ever mentioned in the dressing room. I must ask a few of the Kilmurray Bricken.
It was up on the wall, I'll say.
Yeah, but that kind of a psychological boost that Portlaoise were nearly cocksure they were going to the final. A phenomenal achievement. They got a bit of luck in the Munster final against Kearns O'Rahilly's. They had a goal disallowed, and Kilmurray Bricken went down the under in the field and snuck it. but you know, their county success definitely you can't be argued with. And you know, Paulie was talking about the inspiration for the likes of Keelan Sexton and Dermot Coughlin, but going back to the 2004 breakthrough for the county and Munster as well, you know, that would inspire this particular one in 2009 to get to the All-Ireland Club final in 2010 on St. Paddy's Day as well. And they just had that conveyor belt all the time. Players were coming through. They had easily, for most years, the strongest panel in the county, and probably had enough headaches to try and pick teams, not to mind squads. So really got a lot of riches. And on the flip side of that, it was probably the last kick for that Kilkee team that had been, you know, so successful as well, and so to the fore. And the following year as well for Liscannor, a fine team that, you know, just didn't win that county championship. So a pity that Kilkee had to bow out like that, and we've seen where they've gone in recent years through lack of numbers and all that. But definitely Kilmaria Brecken's time, and that's where they were at their peak.
Yeah, if I could just bring Jim in there about that county final. Jim, I think it's sort of sad in a way between it's only 2009 that this county final was, and it's sad the way the two teams have gone. Kilmaria Brecken went from strength to strength, and sadly, as Owen said, it was sort of the last kick in that Kilkee team, and sadly we've known what's happened to them in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, but you have to look at the catchment areas as well, and Kilmaria Bricken have a big catchment area from spreading from Quilty to Mullaghey. You look at the national schools, the 4 national schools, Core and Anna, so they always have good numbers there. They have players stretching down there as well towards they've the Eamon Bracken came in and joined from Kilmaley. They had 1 or 2 players that came in as well. The Ina Killamona lads, Aidan McCarthy recently, cousins, relations in Kilmaria Bricken. But yeah, I suppose that sort of team, that Kilmaria Bricken sort of vaunted team, it was a coming of age party for the likes of that team. You had Stephen Maloney was in his pomp, Noel Downs was in his pomp, Inda Coughlin, Mark Killeen, Darren Hickey, Mark McCarthy. I suppose one thing that'll always be remembered, I know a good lot of lads because they're around my age, and you always see that it's the crown and glory of Evan Talty. If you ever talked about Evan Talty, it's the one thing you'll always remember, scoring that point, winning that Munster final for Kilmaria Bricken. He's required legend status above there for achieving that. Yeah, but I remember that All-Ireland final against St. Gall's as well, and I think Stephen Maloney was on fire, and you just were waiting for Kilmaria to sort of go up another gear, but they never sort of went up that gear. And Kevin Niblock, a terrific footballer for Antrim, he was just so prominent for St. Gall's, and they sort of wrestled away. And like, I remember that game against Portlaoise, and I was like, you know, this is going to be a real step up for Kilmaria Bricken, but they took them on and they just blew them out of the water that day, and you almost felt like they had the hardest game won, beating Portlaoise. And we came in, they would have been tipped 50-50 to beat St. Gall's. Like, it was a real 50-50 game, but they just, as Owen said, they left their worst performance to the final day out. And for Kilkee, in probably years, the youth, you know, they're joined up now. It's a 4-way amalgamation. In underage, they're joined up with O'Curry's and Navon, and you just look at it, there's more Navon O'Curry's lads on the team underage than there is in Kilkee lads. And there's odd 1 or 2, but yeah, it's just the numbers aren't there, and I suppose, you know, it's a sad indictment, but what can be done if the numbers aren't there? As players get on, and like Liscannor, they're such a great team, they needed the likes of a 4 or 5 more of Darren Eagles to supplement that team to keep them going. And like, when Darren Eagle now has left the scene, and you can see where Liscannor have gone since losing a player of that ability, like, you know, so Kilkee just needed that 4 or 5 just to keep the juggernaut going, like Kilmurray had the last few years, getting Keelan and getting Dermot Coughlin. It keeps the whole thing rolling over. Kilkee didn't get that, and when you don't get that, the slide drops sadly, as you see with Liscannor and Kilkee, 2 great teams, but 2 aging teams, and legs will always win out as you get on and it comes senior championship.
Yeah, as you said yourself, Jim, everything really always comes down to numbers. But We'll now move on to our apologies to Nicholson. We just can't seem to get him on the line. We'll now move on to our last county final, and this is your choice, Jim. What game have you picked?
I've gone for Cracklow versus Éire Óg in 2014, and the reason I went for this was a real mandated test how good Cracklow are. I remember Éire Óg had beaten a very Kilmorey Bricken team in the semi-final, and Éire Óg were exceptional that day out, and you just look at the names and people are saying that Éire Óg are really going to take it to Cracklow. This is an Éire Óg team that are really going to deliver this. Slade, Kilmorey, Bricken. You just look at the team like Dean Ryan and Kieran Russell that were so influential players for Clare, and they were only 2 wing backs in their Éire Óg team, and they were so littered with so much talent, like the Graham Glenn, Owen Glenn, Stephen Hickey. You could just name out the names as the defenders, and like Sarah Butler in defence. Aaron Fitzgerald was in that defence. Evan Courtney was in the forward line. Davy O'Halloran. So is Darren O'Neill in midfield for Éire Óg. Éire Óg brought such a crowd to that county final. I remember being there and covering it, and you just see the stands, the bonfires were going off, the chanting was going on, and it was almost feel like a celebration, a party for Éire Óg. It was going to be crowning them as champions. But Cracklow just came out, and the first 20 minutes, they just put down a marker and was like, oh my God, these guys mean business. Conor McGrath and Podge Collins. Podge Collins stuck one of the best goals I've ever seen in a county final, and I don't think I'll ever see a better goal in a county final. And they just tore into Éire Óg, and they just sucked the life out of them. And this was a really, really talented Éire Óg side, best Éire Óg side on paper, I'd say, in the last 10 or 15 years. And Cracklow just broke them down, lines all over the field. The half-forward line of Conor Ryan was exceptional out around the middle of the park. Fergal Lynch, Killian Duggan, they just tore into him, and Sean Collins was pulling the strength, and there was no weakness in that Cracklow team. And that's where Cracklow fought to short in the last few years. There's been probably one, each player in each line, Cracklow be missing a player, but in that team, that Cracklow team, they weren't missing anyone. And you just look at the half-back line was strong, the half-forward line was strong. Did the game won by half-time, and Éire Óg came back and they mounted a sort of challenge. They could never get near them, and they almost felt like Cracklow were sauntering over the line. And I just come out of that county final, and I said, these boys are going to take some stopping. And just going on that Munster final, Dean Blow and Dr. Crokes, I remember we were down watching in the Gaelic grounds and covering it. I really felt going into it like no one are giving Cracklow a chance here. It's all about Dr. Crokes. And if Cracklow produced, and Cracklow went up a gear, they went up 2 or 3 levels, and they were exceptional in that final. And it was the biggest performance, the biggest test Dr. Crokes got in Munster in numerous years. I always felt like Dr. Crokes sort of sauntered, even when they played Milltown the last few times. They were just comfortable, and even Milltown at best weren't able to compete. But Cracklow really tore into Crokes that year, and Crokes came out. I remember Johnny Buckley afterwards saying, like, how did we win that one? That was the sort of said that Crokes were so relieved at winning that county final, because Cracklow were just pulling scores. Colin McInerney was exceptional, and just felt if Cracklow had gone on and beaten Crokes in that Munster final, that they too would have gotten to an All-Ireland final and possibly could have gone on and won it, that belief that they would have gotten out of. So it just struck me, they'd beaten Crusheen 7 days earlier. They'd gone on and they beaten the Waterford champions. I think it's the following day after beating
I think so.
Éire Óg as well, but they were just on their pumped in, and just Conor Ryan, Fergal Lynch, Killian Duggan, their absence. But that for me was probably one of the most dominant performances in the county final against a very, very talented Éire Óg side that would have probably won county finals in other years if they hadn't been competing against what was an exceptional Cracklow side.
Thanks very much, Jim. Jim, for your choice. I'll turn our attention now to Seamus. Seamus, Jim has high praise for Cracklow. They tore into the blocks there, Éire Óg match. They almost had the game won at half time. He said that Podge Collins scored one of the probably best goals in the county final. What are your memories of the county final that year?
That was an exceptional Cracklow team, and I suppose in the couple of years after that, they lost 3 key players from that team. Killian Duggan and Fergal Lynch, who were assisting them from Clooney, were no longer available because Clooney had their own team. And Barry Duggan retired, Virginia combination of injuries and different things. And there were 3 key players, but they were an exceptional team. And I think another player who was key to the success that Cratloe football had was without doubt Conor McGrath. Now, we all know how good a hurler he is. He's a fantastically skillful hurler. His football, he confined his football to appearances with his club, but he was an absolute key to the success they had in football. There wasn't a club football team in the county who were capable of controlling him, say, on his good days. You know, he just created openings where nobody else could do it. And he brought players like Carl McInerney and Augie Murphy and Podge and Sean Collins. He brought them into the action around him. He was key to that success. And I agree with Jim. I was at that club final side against Crokes. And the Cratloe were extremely unlucky not to have won that game. It was one of the best games of football in that era. They really put it up to Crokes. They mastered them and outplayed them for a lot of that game, but just didn't get over the line. But they were an exceptional Cratloe team.
Owen Brennan, for bringing you in. What impression did that Cratloe team make on you? They seem to be very good team. Jim and Seamus in high praise. And what was your view on that team?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be in awe. We spoke about the dual commitments before and perhaps how they've hindered in some years. And, you know, that debate is still up for grabs. But into 2014, I think it just showed the power of maybe such a small group of players to go on and win, you know, titles in the space of a week, hurling and football, which alone, as we know from our own clubs, it's very hard to concentrate on one sport and try and win a championship by concentrating all on one sport. But they're going week on week, hurling football at the highest level, and to go on and win. And Seamus is right, and you know, even more so, they should have probably won a Munster senior double that year in hurling and football as well. But to be the first, let's say, Clare club in 100 years to hold the senior football championship, I think you'd have to be in awe of that achievement. And hurling football has changed a lot in 100 years, so it's a lot harder to do now, and the fitness level is a lot higher as well. What I'm noticing here as well is that there's a bit of a pattern coming about Jim. He said that he was tipping Newmarket to do well, and they wouldn't do well, and then he was tipping them to do badly, and Newmarket to go well. And then he came out of the 2014 county final, and he said it'll take something special to stop Cratloe, and they haven't won a championship since. So I'd say there's a bit of a jinx. It's a bit of a jinx about Jim at the moment.
The poor old Jim, you get a bit of a jinx as well. It may occur to them. Paddy, if I could bring you in about Cratloe, what they did. Owen mentioned left aside that 100-year achievement, I think, was the double hurling and football. Very, very hard to do, and it's great credit to a club like Cratloe that they're able to pull that off.
Absolutely, and it would take a special bunch to do it, and that's what they're a special bunch. Like, if you look at them, Liam Markham, Cathal McInerney, Conor Ryan, Sean Collins, Podge Collins, they're all best friends with each other as well, which makes it a lot better. Like, it's, you know, to win with your friends is special. To win with your club and your schoolmates is great, but when they're your best friends, you know, what else do you want to be doing but going out training with them and going out winning with them? And that's what they did. Like, and Seamus touched on it there, I think, was you had like Killian Duggan and Fergal Lynch, and obviously they've gone back to Clooney Quinn. They were both midfield together, I think, at the time, and they've been a loss. And like Jim touched on it at the start, the strength that Éire Óg had, I think they had over 30 named on the programme. Now, you'll always have that around county final time. You have some lads come out of the bushes to get on the programme. But
you're nearly on the panel yourself, Polly.
Not that time, but like, I think Éire Óg this year, maybe, you know, I think they could have came close this year if they got over Doonbeg, which they obviously didn't. I think they thought they had that game won, but this I think would have been the closest they got to had they got over. Very professional again under Paul Madden, like they were under James Hanrahan, but a special Cratloe team like Cathal McInerney is a gifted footballer. You just and enjoy any time going to Cusack Park or wherever it is to see him with a football, like what he can do with it. And as Jim had said, Podge Collins was in magical form that time. But like, there just seems to be, maybe there was no burden of history on Cratloe at that time, and there was nothing weighing them down. Whereas now in recent years, especially at football, you know, they just don't seem to be playing with that same bit of freedom, or, you know, they're not throwing the shackles off as much as they should be. Like, and obviously one constant that they've been fortunate to have is Pierce DeLucre inside in goals has been one of the most consistent club goalkeepers in Clare. One of the years they won, I'm not sure, was it 14 or 13, but I think he had a clean sheet all the way up to the final. But again, like, no, it helps very much when it's a tight-knit bunch like we saw with Ballier, and that was definitely the case with Cratloe, and fully deserving in their place to have that double of 2014, a very special few weeks for them.
Thank you very much, lads. It's been great going down.
Noel, Paddy, I believe you have there's a big fundraiser, and before we finish up, there's a big fundraiser in Newmarket this weekend, I believe.
Oh yeah, thanks very much, Jim. So we're doing the Newmarket on Fergus 500-mile challenge, all going towards 5 local charities in Newmarket and County Clare. So they're South Clare Meals on Wheels, Newmarket on Fergus Men's Shed, Bunratty Search and Rescue, Pieta House, and Sláinte an Clár. So we're just looking for people to get out over the bank holiday weekend and maybe run, walk, cycle, and we've even said you could crawl a mile, and donate anything you want, €10 via GoFundMe. All the details are on social media. So any support, even from people all over Clare, because as we know, there are 5 services that help people all over the county. So any support that we could get for that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Paddy, for highlighting it. We'll highlight it up on our YouTube channels and, of course, our Facebook and Twitter pages as well. I'll try and give it as much promotion as we can. Thank you very much, Paddy. I think, folks, that's all we've got time for tonight. I want to take a special thank you to Seamus Hayes, Owen Brennan, Paddy McMahon, and of course you, Jim Conlon, for organising all of this. This show will be available on our RCB YouTube channel. It'll also be on rcb.ie on 92.5, 94.8 FM on Monday evening. So soon enough. And I just want to say this is Noel Green, say good night. Continue listening to your local community radio station, RCB Radio.